Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. I'm Max Chadwick alongside PJ Clark and Tate Sigworth. Now welcome on another very special guest, Benjamin Solak, who's a senior college football writer at the Draft Network and co-host of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with our king, Mr. Perfection himself, Trevor Sikkema. And our good friend, I just mentioned, he challenged you to our draft trivia game. Ben, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I'm not going to get 5. I'm aiming for 3.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. No, I'd like to bat average. We did trivia night for like a couple months for the Draft Network, and I was the worst every night. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember
Okay.
People are really low right
But
now.
Ben, but Ben, let me just tell you, John Ledyard was like, Trevor is a moron. Like, if he gets 2, I'll be shocked. So we're like, oh boy, like we were terrified. He rattled them off, man.
No,
so
Trev's good. Trev's good on like recent stuff. Like we would ask Trev about like, hey, the 2005 NFL draft, he'd be like, no chance. You know what I mean? But like recent stuff, he was locked in on. And then the Tampa Bay Lightning one was a freebie. That kid is obsessed with the Lightning.
Yeah,
that was a gimme.
For that.
We had to give him something.
Yeah. Like, because John made him out to be, maybe the dumbest man alive, but he ended up being one of the smartest people we've ever had on our show. So as I mentioned before, John Ledyard, Mike Renner, Austin Gale all scored 3 out of 5 on our game. Trevor scored the all-time high, perfect 5. We'll see if you can beat that, but first I'm going to ask you some questions first. So real quick, how'd you get started with the Draft Network?
Yeah, oh, wow. All right. So back when the Draft Network was NDT Scouting, which was up until 2018, Joe Marino was doing his first prospectus. And if I remember correctly, it was the 2017. Yeah, it was Nate Peterman. So it was the 2017 NFL Draft. And it was the first time doing it. The prospectus is like 300 scouting reports, right? And so you have to get a format for all these scouting reports, do all the positional rankings, and you got to write them all out. And Joe was like, I understand how much work this is. And then he didn't. And so he was like 2 weeks out from the draft, and he was totally up against it. Like he had way too much work kind of sitting on his plate. I had interacted with Joe. I'd interacted with Kyle. I really enjoyed those guys' work, and they had helped teach me a lot about the game. Like I like John, for example, like taught me block down, step down rules off of Hassan Reddick's film. And I was like, Reddick is bad at run defense. He was like, no, he's not. Like these are really good guys who were great in the community back in like 2016, 2017. And so Joe was up against it. I was in his mentions and I made like some sort of grammar joke, which if you know me, that's like pretty par for the course. Like that's my line of humor right there. I made a joke about a participle, I think. And Joe was like, hey, if you're going to be an idiot about grammar, I've got 300 scouting reports that need to be copy edited. Hit me up. And I did that thing where you're like, I don't know if this is a joke or not. Mm-hmm. So I have to give an answer that could work if it's a joke and could work if it's not. So I spent a long time thinking about that. Yeah. I spent a long time thinking about that response. Chose a perfect GIF. Right. And then I sent it to him. And then I kind of like sat there for a little bit. I was like, I'm just going to DM him. Like, I got nothing to lose. And so I DM'd him and I was like, hey, I'm not sure if you're kidding or not, but like, if you need that, I'm down. And he was like, I absolutely do. I need all of this work done in this very short time period. And I hit him up. I was like, that's no problem. I can do that. It's no issue. And then I called my then long distance girlfriend, who is now my wife. And I said, hey, you're coming to visit this weekend. So excited to see you. Do you mind if I spend 0 time with you and edit another man's work for no money? She was like, yeah, it's no problem. Hence the future wife thing. And I ripped through. I did those. I did that work. And then, it was good. Got it out on time. It was good. There's still a couple of spelling errors, typos in there that I could like find the reports that they're in and point them out. And like, I remember them. But then, that was the draft. Summer went through and we got to 2017 start of the season, about August. And I got a call from Kyle, which is basically like, hey, like Joe's been bothering me to hire you for 4 months. And I'm giving in, you know what I mean? And so I got to start writing with them, unpaid contributor style, popped up to paid contributor. The NDT folded, the Draft Network started. The first 4 guys were John, Trev, Joe, and Kyle. And then they gave me the call as their next hire. Started part-time there, got full-time there, still full-time there. So I've been riding those guys' coattails for a long time, and I'm very happy to be doing so.
Definitely not a bad gig. I mean,
yeah.
It's all that's what Twitter is, man. You got to take advantage if the opportunity presents itself.
For sure.
So we are a while out, about 1.5 years, but we know from your Twitter you are a big Game of Thrones fan. So Can you just go over your thoughts on the finale, the ending, all of that fun stuff.
But that's the thing is, like, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan in the way that, like, I'm a big anything that's on the television fan. Yeah, like, obviously Game of Thrones is top tier, but like that's a tremendous show. To me, that's like at the level of Breaking Bad. That's like at the level of Peaky Blinders. I was never one who is like, yo, given what I've researched about Aegon's prophecy, like that, like, you know, I was like enjoying.
I was worried
you
like, were.
These dragons are sick, my G. Like that was it for me. And so in pretty standard fashion, whenever the internet gets like super upset about something, I was just kind of there like, guys, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like it sucks, but like it's okay. It's still really cool. So yeah, the final season was largely disappointing because they did nothing bold, they did nothing aggressive, they did nothing surprising. All that Game of Thrones was keeping you gripped, was keeping you in a constant state of kind of fear, trepidation, uncertainty. And that always has to end at some point. Any show that's predicated on that has to eventually give that up. Like, I loved Dexter. I thought Dexter was one of the best shows ever. But the thing about Dexter is that idea of like, hey, is this guy a good guy or a bad guy, eventually dies. And the creators of Dexter were like, no, it's never going to die. And all of a sudden it was season 7. We were like, we don't care anymore, like at all, fellas. So like that on which Game of Thrones was based was always had an expiration date. It reached its expiration date. The season episode 3, the giant battle, that was sick. And then whatever, I got what I wanted out of that. That was super cool. Night King survived, was crazy. And that moving on. Dragon, that was the Night King, was sick. I had a good time. It's all right.
Yeah, honestly, dude, like the thing with Game of Thrones I loved was it was such a slow burn, and then the payoff would make it so much better because you waited for the payoff. And then it felt like the last 2 seasons were just like payoffs every episode. It was like, okay, we didn't like build up to this enough. Like it was just like hitting us with everything. I was like, all right, I'm not ready for this.
Right. That they shortened the season length in terms of the number of episodes, right? You start like just jamming everything in, you leave storylines unfinished. That's why like it's cool to think about like when I have like kids long time from now, and I'll have to be like, yo, the best show of my generation was Game of Thrones. It was 6 seasons. You're gonna watch the 6 seasons and enjoy the 6 seasons, and you're not gonna research or look at anything else. I set you guys up.
Google is a myth at that point.
Yeah.
So you're also on top of the Draft Network, a writer for Bleeding Green, covering the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people are starting to hit the panic button on Philly. Is Carson Wentz, is his clock expiring? And at what point do we see our king, Jalen Hurts, get a shot?
Yeah, no, that's bad. Oh, the second they made that draft pick, and when we wrote about it in April, it said that the fundamental issue with this is you're forcing yourself into a problem. You're forcing yourself into a conversation, into a debate here in the event that Carson and the offense are anything less than perfect, and certainly they're less than perfect. Carson's going to play better. I know he's going to play better because you cannot play worse. And it's also, you know, it's there are so many things that are wrong with Carson right now. You know, there were times in the 2019, the 2018 seasons where you said, Carson's doing everything he can. He just isn't a great pocket manager. He likes to stand in the face of pressure. He's not a perfect placement passer. And this is who he is. And there's no way he could do better with these weapons, with these coordinators than he's playing right now. That was the case a couple years ago. This year, everything is wrong, right? Everything is in upheaval. The team's in total disarray. And the coaching staff has no idea how to help their quarterback. The quarterback clearly does not trust or communicate well with the coaching staff. The coaching staff's got no idea what to do with all these injured players. They don't know how to use the young players that the front office gave them. The front office clearly doesn't understand what the coaching needs, right? It's like nobody's on the same page. So eventually, laws of chaos, something's going to click somewhere. You know, Wentz is going to start finding John Hightower, who's been uncovering nicely, but Wentz won't throw to him. Ertz will start finding the targets that for some reason he's not getting. The running game, which has been solid, will take over. Something will click, and then things will get easier from there. They might get harder first. San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore the next 3 games. Not ideal when your defense, your offense is bad. Good defenses, yeah. So it might get worse, but it will get better. Wentz will play better. I'm nowhere near the panic button on Wentz, but there's a conversation to be had about Howie Roseman's and that front office ability to evaluate talent. They have not drafted good players since they acquired Carson Wentz. There's a conversation to be had not about Doug Peterson's decision-making or offensive philosophy, in my opinion, but on with whom he surrounds himself. After Reich and DiFilippo left, he put a lot of a lot of eggs in the basket on Mike Groh and Press Taylor. Groh has since been fired. Press Taylor has done little to impress as Carson's quarterback coach. Now Rich Scangarello, Marty Morningweger in the building. These are some veteran guys. And if Doug can't get everybody to coalesce and build an identity on offense, they're going to continue to look like a different team week to week to week to week. So there's issues everywhere. And there's certainly reason for frustration and some panic with the way the front office and the coaching staff are handling their young quarterback. But this is the worst 3-game stretch of Wentz's career. He's going to play better than this.
And even just going off of that, so you mentioned Philadelphia's inability to find talent in the front office. The drafts have not been good. The wide receiver room in Philadelphia is terrible. I am a Jet fan. Joe Douglas, coming from Philadelphia, did not draft a lot of wide receiver talent there. The Jets have arguably just as bad, if not worse. And everybody on Jets Twitter this morning, when it came out that the Eagles are now down to one healthy wide receiver from this week, and I think it was Connor Hughes, somebody on the Jets beat was making a joke that the Jets are now not the worst. And everybody on Jets Twitter is like, oh, thank God we have nobody from Philadelphia's front office running our team. And it's like, oh, that's unfortunate.
Right. And that's one of the big people like to take certain players of the Eagles' last couple of draft classes and either call them Joe Douglas guys or Howie Roseman guys, which number one isn't exactly how it works. And number two is just like playing yourself, because everybody sits down and everybody has a conversation about these guys. And even in front offices where like it's Chris Ballard or it's Kevin Colbert, like it's somebody who's like really considered a good drafter. More times than not, his number two probably hates the pick. Like the Eagles took Jalen Hurts at 53. We know from what they said, because the media bullied it out of them, and thank God they did, that they otherwise would have looked at J.K. Dobbins or Jeremy Chinn. Jeremy Chinn's been one of the best rookie defenders in Carolina through the first 3 weeks of the season. J.K. Dobbins has been the most effective Baltimore running back through the first 3 weeks of the season. Did they need J.K.? Probably not. Did they need Jeremy Chinn? Heck yeah, they did. And they elected to take Jalen Hurts. But that's the difference between a franchise-defining pick in a good way and a franchise-defining pick in a bad way. Smart front offices are usually like one hair off of being terrible front offices. The draft is very difficult, and so often teams are between two players. But like the Eagles say that like if they hadn't taken Derek Barnett, they liked T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt's gonna be defensive player of the year. Derek Barnett's got 5 sacks. Like it's that close. You know what I mean? So front offices really they can change direction on a breeze, because the difference between a really good pick and a really bad pick is that small.
So the last question I want to ask about the Eagles before we move on. So we mentioned Jalen Hurts. Like, do you want him to get any sort of snaps, especially if Carson struggles these next 3 weeks? They're going up against really good defenses, as you mentioned. Do you think Hurts should even get any snaps, or do you want to wait and just sit him as long as possible?
All right, so if Hurts gets snaps, there's one of 3 things that can happen. He gets snaps and he looks bad. If he gets snaps and he looks bad, then you either have to leave him out there to develop, or you have to put Carson Wentz back out there, who is bad enough that you chose to put Jalen Hurts out there. Now, not only is it a massive indictment on the front office and the coaching staff, who acquired a quarterback when they already had one and have no idea how to use his skill set, but also it ruins his future trade value, which is a big part of the whole reason the pick was considered wise by this very big brain front office. So if Hurts goes out there and it goes bad, nothing good comes from that. If Hurts goes out there and it goes good, okay, congratulations. Wentz is $134 million. You cannot cut him for the next 2 years, and you're not going to be able to trade him either, because number one, the contract is still pretty big, and teams are not going to want to pay him a pretty big deal if he's bad enough to be replaced by a second-round rookie. And number two, you have to swallow the signing bonus and the option bonus. Remember, this contract's got essentially 2 signing bonuses on it because of the way they wanted to prorate the money over 6 years. So you're swallowing a massive amount of dead cap in 2021 or 2022, which, because of COVID affected cap ceilings, is not the sort of year you want a ton of dead money. So if Hurts goes out there and is good, all right, congratulations. You have a rookie quarterback who's good, who helped enliven your offense. Your offense probably still sucks. Offensive line is injured. Wide receiver room is terrible. And now you got the Wentz contract problem. So your goal right now as a team, front office, coaching staff, everybody, we have a $134 million man that we got to get right. The last thing that I think Wentz needs is another backup coming in for him. Because the last time this happened, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. And in the event that, like there might be a quarterback, there might be a personality type that needs a 2-week breather just to reset, flush his system, and come back out. I don't think that's Carson, given his history. So to me, there's the Eagles season 2020 put off to the side. We're not going to worry about this. We got to worry about Carson Wentz and getting him right. And putting Jalen Hurts in as an actual starter does little to help that. 2 QB pack, keep it going. I don't care. Live your dreams. Hurts as the starter, to me, that's dangerous waters.
So let's move on to the draft right now. So you're a college football writer, senior college football writer at the Draft Network. Every major college football conference is now playing this fall, but we're still going to miss out on a few superstars who have opted out, such as Penei Sewell, Micah Parsons, who just broke my heart, and most recently Javon Holland too. What do you make of these guys opting out? And of the guys who are coming back, like Rondale Moore is trying to come back now, Rashad Bateman, who do you think could help themselves in coming back this season?
Rashad Bateman's coming back with the number 0 too, because Rashad Bateman's just the coolest kid on the face of the planet.
I love it. It matters. Numbers matter.
It's a doggone good ball player. Thank God that there's the opportunity for these college players to opt out. I think it's extremely important. And I think that what their draft process looks like is coincidentally a very interesting litmus test to installing this sort of feature more frequently or accepting it more frequently. Ed Oliver sat in front of us and said, I'm a Houston Cougar, go Cougs, I'm coming out next year. I'll play the season, but I'm not coming back.
Lawrence said the same thing.
Like, I'm Ed Oliver. Like, this, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
He goes on to have a little bit of injury problems, a little bit of frustration with Major Applewhite, some, drama about a coat on the sidelines. And then he gets picked 9 overall. You know what I mean? So that season did nothing for him. It showed nothing on film. It showed nothing. And if anything, it added questions to his evaluation. And he still went top 10, which is to say there was no benefit for Oliver in his junior season. There was only risk. He incurred some injury during that year. Thank God it wasn't worse. So when we look at players opting out for COVID, it's understandable why Notre Dame's got 25 new cases. They don't want to potentially expose themselves both short term to sickness that might affect their ability to train for the NFL Combine, and long term, screw the NFL, screw football, their health for the duration of their lives. So they get this opportunity. Well, there's inherent risk in football every year. And it's obviously not COVID related, but it's injury related. And when it comes to players who are anticipated to be early draft picks and make a ton of money on their rookie contracts, sometimes that risk that's invited in playing a regular college football season is not worth the reward because they're really not going to raise their stock that much. Micah Parsons can be a top 10 pick. He was going to be a top 10 pick the moment that he single-handedly beat the Memphis Tigers. And if he did anything, good, bad, or otherwise, this year, he was going to be a top 10 pick, save for getting drastically injured. That's what was going to affect his stock. Second linebacker in this class is Dylan Moses. Dylan Moses wasn't supposed to be in this class. He was supposed to be in last year's class, and he tore his ACL when he was practicing. And so the ability to say, I've already done what I need to do in college to secure my earning potential in the NFL, and I'm no longer going to play in college, is something that has been thrown out as an idea for college athletes. This year, if Greg Rousseau and Micah Parsons and Penei Sewell show up extremely fit for the Combine, test really well, future top 10 picks are going to be thinking about that, and deservedly so. Now, there's another sort of player, which is a non-guaranteed top 10 player, a non-guaranteed top 32 player. And these guys often have a lot to prove at the college level to potentially increase their earning potential or to increase what they're going to earn in the NFL. And this is where the risk of injury can potentially be worth the reward. You look at a player like Jalen Mayfield, the tackle out of Michigan. He had a very solid season in 2019, but he's clearly still growing. There's mistakes on his film that are easy mistakes. He's much more so athlete than he is technician right now. He was going to come out. Then Big Ten opened the football back up, and he goes back. And it makes sense for his profile because athletically, he could be a much earlier drafted tackle than I think he would be based off of the most recent film he put out. So go, be better than you were. You don't have to face Chase Young anymore. That's nice. You put out some good film, and now all of a sudden you've made money. God forbid you get injured, that's terrible, and you're going to lose money off of that. But there is a calculus here in which, all right, maybe the risk is worth the reward. And so it depends on what sort of a player you are and what your stock is. And that's why early identification of these players and early film review of these players, early feedback to these players is so important. A lot of times players get surrounded by people who don't know what they're looking at, don't know what they're talking about that, and give them an inappropriate evaluation of their stock, which leads to decisions that they don't need to make. And that goes both ways. A lot of players who aren't that good get gassed up, but also people who are attached to football programs, college football programs, try to keep really good players in the programs for as long as possible because they want those teams to be successful, and that's a disservice to those players as well.
So it's still early. SEC's only played 1 week. Pac-12, Big Ten haven't even started yet. But there's been some good performances. There's been some bad performances. So who's your biggest riser and faller for the 2021 draft so far?
You can't say Kyle Pitts is a riser because we all knew he was nuts, and he's still nuts. Seth Williams, Auburn had a good game. I like Justin Moore. I like this kid out of Texas, wide receiver, number 6. He's a true junior. 2019, he was ineligible, suspended for the entire year, unlawful possession of a firearm in the state of Texas. So it was a serious offense for which he missed the entire season. And he comes back to a 2020 Texas Longhorns receiving core that was missing Colin Johnson and missing Devin Duvernay. It's 2 NFL draft picks. Got a senior quarterback in Sam Ehlinger, who good college quarterback, and they got Mike Yurcich, the offensive coordinator who came from Oklahoma State. They're going to be able to throw the football. It was a question as to who Ehlinger's top receiving target was going to be. Moore very quickly filled those shoes. He went for 100 and a touchdown against UTEP, and then he had 3 scores against Texas Tech. Got banged up in the Texas Tech game. He was in the locker room. They told him that Texas had fallen behind, and he put himself back in the game, which is a tough cookie. And he's listed as 170 pounds, which I don't think he is, but he is a thinner dude. So I'm a little bit worried that he's kind of that Devonta Smith mold where he's just a good route runner. He's a fluid guy, but he doesn't really have an NFL frame. But to me, as a guy who didn't get to put any film out there in 2019, watching Texas football, it's clear that he's the NFL caliber wide receiver for the Longhorns.
You said unlawful possession of a firearm in Texas. Like, what do you have? Like a tank? Like a tank or something? Like, what the hell did he have?
I don't know. I don't know because I'm not sure if he was recruited in Texas, if he was an out-of-state recruit. I don't know if that changes things depending on like where he's from. But moral of the story is, yeah, he got suspended for the whole season for having a firearm, and he was a sophomore, so he was like 19, 20. So something to be very aware of.
Do you have any fallers right now in this 2021 NFL draft? Like, I know Brock Purdy has really struggled so far this season.
Yeah, I saw somebody recently be like, Brock Purdy's doing better. And I was like, no.
No, he's not.
Appreciative, but no, yeah. I mean, he got Charlie Kohler back for the TCU game, and it's very clear that he trusts exactly one receiver in his repertoire, and that's Charlie Kohler. They got like 5 tight ends there. That's all they throw to. They have no receivers at this time, which is sad.
The only receiver he had was a tight end, too, and Hakeem Butler now on the Eagles. Now a tight end.
Hakeem Butler's going to be active. He's going to get 5 targets next week. We've got nobody else to throw the ball to.
I can't wait. I loved him.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. It's tricky. It's difficult to think of anybody who's particularly been a faller. There's not a lot that you've seen from people so far. Purdy has struggled for sure. Louisiana Lafayette guys have been good. I'm just like popping through all the games that I've gotten a half a look at here. All the Pitt secondary has been great. You could say that Malik Cunningham, the quarterback out of Louisville, looked really live against Western Kentucky, but Miami gave him trouble, and then Pitt gave him trouble. Obviously, he's injured, and so kind of seeing what he is. But actually, a legit one is Tutu Atwell, his wide receiver, Chatarius Atwell, who I wasn't the biggest fan of in the summer, and that's because it's like 5'6", 170. And as a man who fully believed in Donnell Pumphrey and learned a lesson from Donnell Pumphrey, you got to be of a certain size to be successful. I wasn't impressed with Atwell's hands and his route running. He was a complete gadget guy to me, complete scheme touches. And they've struggled to get him the ball in space. He continues to just be an underneath guy. They're not getting the deep threat from him, the deep ball that they want from him. That's in more Des Fitzpatrick, the senior receiver. There is another NFLer. So that Louisville offense, which is still high-powered, Malik Cunningham's been a little shaky. He's still a little bit more project than he is anything else, and obviously he's banged up right now. But Tutu Atwell, their little speedy wide receiver, to me, it's just I can't get my head around how he's on the field for a significant number of snaps.
So the three of us have covered it extensively already in our preseason scouting reports, but the top 3 quarterbacks in this class are fantastic. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, you obviously know them. However, all 3 of us have them in a different order. How do you see the 3 of them shaking out?
Okay, does anybody here not have Lawrence 1? Because somebody has to, mathematically there, yeah?
Yeah.
That'd be Max.
Somebody does.
I have number 1.
Yeah.
No, that would be you not
Fields.
having him number 1, buddy.
That's correct. Justin Fields, number 1. Let's go.
So my kind of take immediately following the 2019 season was that Fields had played better than Lawrence in that year, and I hold to that.
I agree with that. Yeah,
I think that he had. Fine. Now, there's no doubt that when it comes to like putting a 55-yard ball in a bucket, like Trevor Lawrence does it better than anybody else. The placement on that kid's arm is unbelievable. Now, through the first couple weeks of the season, which obviously Clemson's played Wake Forest in the Citadel, Lawrence playing a little better than he was at the beginning of 2019. So he looks like the guy for sure. And we have yet to see Justin Fields, but Justin Fields now has an uphill battle to kind of get to where Trevor Lawrence's stock is. Why it's also very clear that the league is not as high on Fields as some people in the media are, which couldn't tell you why. I think he's a delightful player. But for me, it goes Lawrence 1, Fields 2, and then Lance 3. I do think that Fields is closer to Lawrence than Lance is to Fields. But with that said, most of that has to do with just against whom Lance is playing. He's got Central Arkansas this year. You know what I mean? There's when we talk about scouting, we always talk about traits and we talk about skills, we talk about evaluations, and we very infrequently talk about degrees of certainty. I believe that I believe that Lance has everything that Fields and Lawrence do. I just have a far lower degree of certainty because it's a lot easier to look like you have those things against Southern Illinois than it is to look like you have those things against Alabama and back-to-back national championships. And so there's uncertainty that's baked into Fields' eval, or excuse me, I keep misspeaking. There's uncertainty baked into Lance's eval that just it's difficult for me to vault him over Fields and over Lawrence for that reason.
He also only throws the ball like 8 times a game.
And that's the thing, right? Is like,
not
well, no, right. So that's part of it, right? How much more pressure is there on Fields throwing? I mean, obviously Fields plays like Maryland, and Fields plays Rutgers. I understand that, but like, you put Fields against Michigan State, a team that he dominated. Fields has to go out there and perform, right? Lance is such a carefree player in a very good way, but also everybody on that North Dakota State team, every position is better than a lot of the teams they're facing. And so it makes quarterbacking easier. And absolutely from a mental perspective, I mean, this is something that you acknowledge with all your FCS players and all of your lower level players. When you just simply outclass everybody, you get away with stuff. Dylan Radins, I do not know how to say this guy's last name.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah, his left tackle, right? It was a really nice prospect. He's top heavy. He doesn't have good balance, but he doesn't need to. He's humongous and faster than everybody else. So it lets you get away with more. So that goes back to just degrees of certainty.
So let's move to from the quarterbacks to the receivers. In your first mock draft, you have 4 receivers going in the top 15. Chase, number 6. Rondell Moore, number 7. Jalen Waddle, 13. Rashad Bateman, 15. That's a stat class, man. And last year in 2020 was a stat class. How do you think they stack up against each other? And what are your thoughts on the top dog right now, Jamar Chase?
Okay, so it's Chase, Bateman, Moore, Smith, Waddle. And then it's always so hard to remember, like just last year's class makes it so difficult. So there's Judy Lamb, Visca, Judy Bright. So I had 5 first-round grades last year with Rager, the 2 Bama kids, Laviska, and Ceedee. I think there's less top-end talent in this year's class. I think that between Ceedee and Laviska, Judy, Ruggs, I don't think I'll have 5 first-round grades in this year's class. But wide receiver every single year is going to be an extremely deep position for the rest of time because wide receiver is getting not easier to play, but so many athletic molds work at the position in such a variety of ways, right? Like we're now seeing 6'4", 240-pound wide receivers named Kyle Pitts and 5'9", 175-pound wide receivers named Tutu Atwell, who's basically a running back, and they all play wide receiver. And it's because there's never been more space on the football field, and there's never been a wider variety of deployments and alignments. And so there's every athlete, just going back to the JV level and the varsity level in high school, gets funneled, right? And anytime you have an athlete who doesn't have a perfect fit, just put him at wide receiver, throw him bubble screens. Kadarius Toney for Florida, who had a tremendous game, right? Tony's just the best ball carrier ever. They don't play him at running back because why bother teaching him how to read blocks and execute concepts? And you can just get him the ball behind 2 blockers in space. That's where he's going to be the best. And so wide receiver is going to be a deep position always. I don't think I'm going to end up with 5 first-round grades at the position this year. I very well could. It kind of depends on Chris Olave probably and seeing what he's able to do at Ohio State because I like him a lot. But I think this year's class might be a little bit of a step down at the top. With that said, Jamar Chase, better than CeeDee Lamb. I see CeeDee Lamb as top 10 player. CeeDee Lamb was a special yak athlete in a way that Jamar Chase isn't. That being, Chase is better deep. It's a tough one. It's a difficult one. It's a shame that we don't get to see Chase again this year. You know, going back to confirmed top 10 players, he's going to go top 10. It would be interesting to see what he did without a quarterback like Joe Burrow, who not only was very accurate but also was fearless. Jamar Chase one-on-one, go make a play, right? And that's a developed relationship. There's a lot of trust there, and sometimes when you don't have that with your quarterback, you can fall production-wise a little bit, and that would have forced a conversation about Chase. Chase is not the same ball-in-hand playmaker that guys like Jalen Waddle and Rondale Moore are, and that's going to invite a conversation about how he should be valued. But in terms of putting a guy in isolation and asking him to win one-on-one against NFL corners, nobody's more ready than Ja'Marr Chase. And so I do think that in the prototype of X receivers being the most valuable, which is a schema you can challenge in the modern NFL, but in that schema, Ja'Marr Chase might be better than CeeDee Lamb.
And so you mentioned Chris Olave there, maybe sneaking into a first-round grade. Me being an Ohio State fan, what do you need to see from Olave this year to sneak him into the first round?
So Max, you're Penn State, Tate's Ohio State. PJ, what are you?
We don't get along.
Yeah, so we go to Syracuse. I'm from Long Island. I've never been a college football guy, so just
I pulled your Northeast accent immediately. You sound exactly like my cousin. But anyway, all right. Chris Olave. Nasty good film. Oh, he's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I was just talking about him with Fran Duffy on the Journey to the Draft podcast. Man, it's like you souped up Terry McLaurin. It's like you gave Terry McLaurin even more juice, man. Oh, he's really, really good. There's little stuff that he's got to tune up. McLaurin was a senior, and McLaurin could do anything to anybody, man. I mean, he had seen it all in the book. Olave doesn't have that experience yet, so he doesn't understand. But, like, that kid carved up Indiana for 4 quarters. Like, he's got some really special ability running routes. His footwork is about as clean as it gets at the college level. The McLaurin comp isn't 1-to-1. I don't think he's McLaurin. But it's worth noting with McLaurin, who ended up a 3rd-round pick and is now dominating at Washington, the volume that he got was not indicative of his talent because of how inundated, because of how dense that wide receiver room was, which is so many good players. You look now at Chris Olave, and he had a little bit of that sensation playing behind KJ Hill last year as they integrated Justin Fields, figuring out what that offense is going to be. I think with Big Ten football back, Chris Olave is the number 1 playmaker on that team. I think that obviously they're still not getting what they need to get out of their tight ends. With J.K. Dobbins gone, they're figuring out with Master Teague and Trey Sermon what that backfield is going to be. Chris Olave right now, to me, is the certainty on that team. I think he's going to come extremely hot out of the gate with Justin Fields. I think he's going to dominate. I think he's going to look great. And then I think we're going to have the same conversation about Garrett Wilson next year as we're having this year about Chris Olave, which is that Garrett Wilson is better than we thought given the amount of volume that he got. And so that's a factor in Ohio State. Chris Olave is a really good player.
All right, so I just mentioned it. We are all seniors at the esteemed football powerhouse Syracuse University. Syracuse University has an NFL prospect for the first time in our 4 years, for the first time ever. You know, yeah, there's a couple of really good guys, but the one we ask everybody that comes on the show, Andre Cisco, you don't have him in the first round. You have him at 61.
Ben.
What the heck, man?
Listen,
what's going on?
I would take him round 1. There's no problem. NFL doesn't like risk takers. NFL.
See, I agree with your assessment there. I agree with that.
So what the question we ask ourselves when it comes to safeties is: are you production wise and athleticism wise warranted in making the decisions that you make? Right? Safety is all about risk management. It's what am I capable of doing on the field? What am I willing to attempt to do on the field? And so when we talk about free safeties, right, you have to have a requisite range and instincts in order to make plays from single high. Andre Cisco does. Check the box. Trevon Merrick will take out of TCU, counterexample. He does. Check the box. Now it's what's your play style? What decisions are you going to make? Trevon Merrick is a Gary Patterson free safety. He follows the rules. No interest in making plays. I mean, he does. Obviously, he picks the ball off and he traps coverage very nicely. But Trevon Merrick is going to go where he's told and do what he's supposed to do. And coaches love that. Trevon Merrick is a smart cookie. Gary Patterson defense is very tough. He moves around, field safety, great player. Andre Cisco would not do well in Trevon Merrick's shoes because Andre Cisco wants to roam. Like, we talk about Andre Cisco as a free safety, yet so many of his good plays are made coming downhill. Now, how is your free safety making plays downhill? Because he's leaving where he's supposed to be. Yeah, right? Because he's supposed to be, deep, playing the roof, watching out for that deep outside route. But Cisco doesn't believe this thinking ACC quarterback's going to throw this ball anyway. Right? He's not scared. He's going to go and hammer down on the dig, and he thinks that he's right. And a lot of times he is, and sometimes he's not. So there is a rampant playmaking instinct in Andre Cisco. And it's now, 13 interceptions in 23 career games, right? There's a very difficult production resume to argue with if you're going to say you're not making good decisions. So I think Cisco's making good decisions. He's risk prone. He's going to blow some stuff for you, but interceptions matter in a very big way at the NFL level. They're the only play, if I'm remembering correctly, that has a higher EPA, not knowing the result, is a recovered fumble, because usually those happen further back, like towards the end zone, whereas interceptions happen further towards the yards. But like, for recovered fumbles are pretty random. Like, interceptions take skill, and Cisco's got it. The problem is you take 32 defensive coordinators and put them in a room, and 20 of them are going to tell you they can't put a player like that on the field because he's going to be a liability to their other guys. Corners at the NFL level don't want to play with Cisco. Corners at Syracuse do, because Cisco's more talented than they are. But at the NFL level, they're not going to want to, because Cisco's going to make them look bad when they think they have safety help and Cisco's somewhere in left field not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So there's a balance that has to be struck. And that balance, that conversation is going to be very important. When we scouted Cisco for summer scouting on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, I said this and I hold to it. There's no dude I'd rather get in the film room with than Cisco. Because as a defensive coordinator or as an evaluator, you want to ask him about his plays, and you don't want the answer of, yeah, it just feels like quarterback was going to do this, so I did this. You want him to very specifically tell you exactly what he's seeing, because in order for that success to be replicable at the NFL level, there has to be some sort of process beyond, I'm just sniffing it out, I'm just feeling it, you know what I mean? So he's a very tricky eval that, as we get closer, we'll get a vibe on where the league likes him, but my guess right now will be the league doesn't like him as much as we do.
So you mentioned there, Syracuse has a couple other guys. I assume you're going to mean Iffy Melifonwu and Trill Williams. But if not,
I mean Melifonwu. Trill Williams is fun, but
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So what do you got on Iffy? We haven't asked anybody about him yet.
Yeah, no, I only saw him through watching Cisco, and I was like, who's the giant corner? And then I saw the last name Melifonwu, and I was like, no, because last time we had a Melifonwu did not go well for us. Now, athletically, he is clearly legit. He's clearly an NFLer. There's absolutely coverage things that you got to teach into him. I don't necessarily think he's an early drafted guy. Like you said, you guys only had one NFLer, and you guys are the Cuse boys, and I had to bring Melifonwu up. But he's a guy the NFL's got tagged for sure. It's tough to watch Cisco film and not notice the 6'3" corner. Like, that's just kind of how your eyes go. And he moves silky, which is nice to see for a guy that size. Israel Mukwamu, who plays South Carolina, 6'4", right corner. He gets noticed for a 3-pick game when they upset Georgia, but nobody was pulling him off film beforehand because he doesn't move like Melifonwu does, right? Easy to see Melifonwu as an NFL athlete. So to me, that's going to be a guy who GCs are going to want him the way they wanted Brian Allen out of Utah a couple years ago. I mean, Allen was a 6th-round pick, but it was like, this body type deserves some investment. It deserves some time. And if you can get him looking at the right things, just off cover 3, he's going to have a wider range than your average corner does. Is that starting caliber? Not necessarily, but if you can get a backup corner out there where if you put him in zones, he's covering a big area, that's a nice benefit to have. It's a good boon. He's going to be a great special teamer because of the long speed. So to me, that's quality day 3 guy.
So moving into our more fun question area, we always like to ask our guests this question. Way back in the spring, we did our own combine. We did a 40, we did a broad jump, a 3-cone, and then we did a long throw, just to see who could throw the football the longest. Yep. Varying results, I think, to say the least, right, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think 40s we had low 5'1", and then up to like 6'4"-ish. Broad jump was like 2 guys around 9 feet, and then I don't know where the other one jumped. The long throw, though, this is that we really just hold near and dear to our hearts, because one person here threw the ball only 19 yards.
That hurts.
So the question is, how would you perform if you were to do these events?
So we did a combine for TDN before the Nashville draft, which was the 2019 draft, because the Eagles drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and then the world went dark. I'm pretty sure I ran low 5s. I think I ran like 5'2" something. And I looked fast. I just was running a squiggly line the whole time. So if I'd do it again, I would run a straighter line. Broad jump, I remember exactly what I jumped. I jumped 5'9", and I was thrilled with it. No, because it was 69 inches, and that was just
very nice.
Okay,
very nice.
Yeah. You gotta be happy.
That's what I was going for, and I nailed it first try, right on the dot. And let's see, we did 3-cone as well. I think I remember I ran an 8:07 because Jalen Ferguson ran 8:08, and I was faster than Jalen Ferguson, so I was pretty pleased with that. Long throw, I would be over 19, but I would not be very far over 19. I I can't fit. Like I got like 8.5-inch hands. Like I gotta hold a football. That's difficult. But I think I'll get it further than 19. God will hope so.
How much further do you think?
30 is 30 yards regular.
Okay.
Is that what's
fine.
comfortably below average but not embarrassing? That's what that's where I live. That margin.
You gotta live right there. It's the best place to live.
I wanna ask you. We love asking our. So basically, just judge a book off the cover right now. So we mentioned like there's a person who ran a 5.1 and also threw 47, and a person who threw 19 and ran like a 6.5. There's obviously a big difference there. Looking at us, just purely looking at us.
Max is obsessed with this.
Who would you say who's the best and who's the worst?
Tate's hair is too good for him to be a bad athlete, so he did well.
It's the correct answer. It's the correct answer.
That's number 2.
You can't have hair like that and not be an athlete. Like if I tried to have hair like that, people would be like, "You can't do that. You play chess.
Yeah.
Like, this is not how this goes."
He was the best athlete. So who's number 2? Like who was the awful athlete and who was like the athlete?
Okay. PJ looks to me like a guy who like was a 6 swimmer in high school. Like he just freaking like nailed 200 butterflies.
Actually, you could not be further from the truth.
Wait till you see him stand up.
Deathly afraid of water and cannot swim. He
you.
literally could not have been further from the truth.
How tall are you, PJ?
I am 6'1".
Yeah, that's the thing is, I thought he was like a
I'm lanky. I got the length.
I think you got the freestyle going. Okay. Yeah. Max, you look pissed when Tate was going through the scores. So I think you're the bad athlete. I think you threw 19.
I didn't. That was PJ.
That was PJ?
Stop. No. We're not like.
Oh, it was Max.
Like get away with that.
Yeah, when Tate was going through it, Max threw up one of these, and I was like, "Oh no, poor guy."
We have to ask everybody. I mean, he pushed it on the internet. We have to ask everybody.
It's tough. I'll be a lot better this year.
Was it Trevor though that said Max was the best athlete? Was that Trevor or was that John?
Because I wore like a quarter zip. He's like, "You look legit," and I was like, "All right, that's all I needed."
Trevor's got a bad scouting eye. It's all right. It's
I mean, there you go. You can hold that one against him now.
Yeah, right.
Okay, all right. Final question, then draft trivia. So we did some research, found out the preseason QB1 hasn't actually been the first quarterback taken since at least 2015 with Jameis Winston, maybe even 2012 with Andrew Luck, depending on your opinions back then. I'm irrationally confident in Trevor Lawrence not only to be QB1, to be the first overall pick. So if he's not, I have a bet with our followers, subscribers, and the guys we're interviewing. I'll drink a smoothie of ingredients of anyone's choosing. So far, Austin Gale from PFF has contributed absinthe. Mike Renner, also PFF, contributed Malort's, which is a horrible brand of Chicago liquor.
Grapefruit whiskey or something like that. It looks terrible.
Nice, tasty.
Their slogan is like weeding out the weakest since like 1937. I was like, oh, that's great for me then. John contributed a couple eggs, and then Trevor said Old Bay seasoning.
Yeah, John probably just drinks eggs regularly. Like that's that's usual.
Hey, the big dude. That's fine.
What do you want to contribute to that smoothie?
Kombucha. No hesitation.
That was
Kombucha
good.
is so nasty, but also has a strong enough flavor that it will protect you from some of the other things.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate it.
Looking out for you.
All right, now the moment everyone's been waiting for, draft trivia. So the deal is you score 3 out of 5. You get our Twitter renamed to Boom or Bust, the Benjamin Solak fan account for a whole week. And we'll also send you some merch when we drop it. I have no idea if we're going to drop it, but
that's
we'll send 3.
Yeah, just 3. Just 3.
I can do 3.
You can do 3.
So John, Mike, and Austin all scored 3. Trevor got 5. So you're saying 3 is like
my objective is 3.
You just said the happy medium. You gotta find the happy medium.
All right.
Right. That's the thing is like below average in this one would be 2, and I gotta get bad at least over 500.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, number 1. Name the last 5 Eagles first round picks.
It's like last 5 years, last 5 first round picks.
Last five
first round picks. Very good. Okay.
Very good. We thought this made
you guys were unlucky because for the last recap I did after the Eagles-Bengals tie, I went through the contributions of their last 5 years of draft classes in that game alone because they had no contributions from their last 5 in that game alone. So 2020 was Jalen Reagor. 2019 was Andre Dillard. Do I have to get the years right or no? I mean,
no. Just round them off.
Right, okay, so 2016 is Carson Wentz. 2017 they didn't have one. So 2015 was Nelson Aguilar?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm missing 2018?
You're missing one.
Yeah,
missing one.
Derek Barnett.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Derek Barnett. And then
fine.
2018 was Dallas Goedert, and they didn't have a first-round pick. They traded away 32 overall that year. Doesn't matter who that became. Doesn't matter if he's a league MVP or anything.
No, absolutely not. No, it's irrelevant.
Stares at the camera.
Absolutely.
Okay. Starting off strong, 1 for 1 here. So next
Go
question. What school has had the most total draft picks since 2000?
Okay. A good one.
They are pretty good.
They got to be
Yeah.
decent.
My initial thoughts right away are Ohio State or Alabama. Because the question technically isn't like which team is in the best or which team is on. It's which team has recruited the most 5-stars. This is what team has recruited the most blue chips. Is basically like that in terms of because it's not like early round draft picks. It's just overall draft picks, and the legal draft 5-stars no matter what. So that like I want to say Ohio State because I think then it's a trick question. You want me to say Alabama, but then I think I'm thinking about it too much, and it probably just is Alabama. Or it could be neither one of these two teams, and there's a name on the bottom of the screen, and it's just very obvious. I'll go Ohio State.
Okay.
That is correct. The Ohio State has 141
Let's go.
draft picks
Look at these
since
draft
2000.
network guys, man. Holy
Yeah, this is
crap.
impressive.
Austin,
This is
John,
We
impressive.
did this to one another for months. We would get on Twitch, do trivia night, and just try to screw each other over. So like I got strats, all right? I've been working on this.
Wow.
This
Okay.
is
I
impressive.
love
This
it.
is really impressive. Putting
All right,
in the
this is-
off-season work.
This is a kind of a Ben Solak question. So in your first mock draft for 2021, who do you have going 27th overall to the Cowboys?
I don't know. All right.
We ask everyone about something they have written.
Yeah.
How
Just
did
to
you do
see if
that?
you remember.
I write so many things. Oh my goodness. Cowboys. So this is my first draft. First. Okay, so they needed So like this isn't like 3 weeks in. This is like preseason. So I would have looked at defensive tackle, safety, corner, tight end. Okay. Interior defensive line, I wouldn't have given them anybody. It's Dallas, so I gave them a player that I thought would piss them off. Every draft, Dallas. I go, okay, that's the best player for them. I'm not taking him. And I go find somebody else. Corner makes a lot of sense because they're so bad at corner right now. Okay, actually, wait. No, I know exactly who it is, and I know who it is. Because I went through a bunch of defensive players, but I had no idea what Mike Nolan was going to do this year, right? Nobody did. Because Mike Nolan hasn't coordinated for like 5 years. And he's like, oh, I'm going to run the 3-4, but it's going to be multiple. We're going to have 4 pass rushers, and they're going to be 4 down linemen. Like, that's not how the 3-4 works. He gave like a bunch of weird quotes. And so I gave up on defense, and I still had Kyle Pitts on the board. And I was like, Blake Jarwin's probably going to be good. But Kyle Pitts is really good. And even if he's not really good, we'll just throw more pass catchers at him. They're going to lose Michael Gallup anyway. So I gave him Kyle Pitts.
Okay.
3
Damn.
for
Yeah.
3.
Unreal.
3 for
Yeah.
3.
I
not
don't
even
think
sweating.
Kyle Pitts. I don't think Kyle Pitts is going to be there at 27. Something tells me.
I
that.
mean, that's the thing, right? Like that in my head, I was like, all right, no. But I wrote that 3 weeks ago before we put
Yeah.
4 touchdowns on Ole
before
Miss.
that.
Yeah.
All right, so going off of that, between
Wow.
Kyle Pitts, Pat Fryermuth, this tight end class, pretty good, might be the best since 2017, when 3 tight ends went in the first round. Who were they?
O.J. Howard, David Njoku, Evan Ingram.
That
Just
was
casual. Just
I
casual.
thought that
Not
might
no.
even
you
thinking
up,
about
but
it.
Because
that
at first I was like, who's
that
the
was
third
just
tight end with
rattled
T.J.
up.
Hawkinson and Noah Fant? And then I once again remembered that's not how the years work. But that tight end class gets re-talked out, re-adjudicated so much because arguably all 3 of them haven't been what they were drafted
they all
to
kinda
be.
stick. Yeah.
And arguably all 3 of them haven't been used correctly. And so there's a lot of like, like it's year 4 in O.J. Howard, and the Tampa Bay fans are still like, please throw him the ball. Like David Njoku's on the trade block. You know what I mean? Like all 3 of those picks kind of had to have a big conversation around them.
Ben, I don't
All
want
right.
to jinx it, but you are 4 for
This is
4 right
crazy.
now, man. You're
Yeah.
past.
I'm feeling
Well-
suddenly extremely good. Now this is bad news for 5 for sure. But
Oh
all right,
my
4
God.
I'll go home happy with 4. I feel all right. Well, let's do it.
Okay, so final question to tie Trevor, the second perfect score, and back-to-back guests. After having 3 not perfect scores, we've had
And
back potentially.
Draft Network. Only the Draft Network
Yeah,
guys.
only
True.
Don't
They're
lock on
coming-
NFL
they're
draft.
coming
Let's
through,
go.
man.
Yeah.
They're coming
Put some
through.
respect. And so it's only fair that this last question is not about the NFL draft.
Okay, dang.
How many kids did Ned and Catelyn Stark have? And name them.
Ned and Catelyn, so not Jon Snow. Okay. It's been a hot second. Rob. Sansa. I'm writing these down. Arya. Bran, who everybody thinks looks like me.
It's true. It's true.
There's one more dude.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen this show, so I am no help here. I don't know who any of these people
This
are.
is the one Tate and I both predicted you would like maybe trip up on.
Absolutely no hints.
Okay, it's obviously 5. It's obviously one more dude. Did they have a kid who died? Well, all of them died. It's Game of Thrones.
For the perfect score, Ben, no pressure.
Yeah, stop it. Theon is Greyjoy. It's not John. Okay, so they have 5 kids. I'm positive they have 5 kids. Rob. I'm like thinking back to like season 1, episode 1, when they're welcoming Robert. Bran, Arya. Did they have like a baby?
No comment.
Sansa. I don't have this. I ain't got it. I'm gonna be so pissed when you say the name, but I don't have it.
Just put out vowels and consonants and see what happens.
Okay. Final answer. He doesn't have it.
Final answer.
Is this confirmed? Doesn't have it.
I don't. What's the name? What's the doggone name? I don't have it.
Rickon Stark.
Dang it!
4 out of 5.
Annoying.
Oh,
Trevor Main's our only perfect score.
so close.
I'm gonna be so pissed if he knew that too, because Trevor's like a big Game of Thrones guy. So there's a good chance he had that, and I did.
He was killed in the Battle of the Bastards. Do you remember that? When he was like,
Yes.
made him. Yeah.
And he was freaking. How old was he?
He was young in that first episode. He was really young.
He's the little one running Arya's shooting the bow, and he's
100%. 100%. I mean, you knew it, but
5,
just
though.
I knew it was
That's very
5 right away. I knew it was 5, and it was 3 boys, 2 girls. And I wrote down the names, and I was like, all right, wrote down Bran. I'm like, here comes the 5th name. And I put my pen down, and just nothing came out.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. I mean, the PFF
I was also hoping.
3 out of 5.
I was also hoping that you
He's the least
I
memorable.
was
He
hoping
didn't do anything for
that
it.
you would have said Jon Snow.
Yeah.
No, I knew John was baiting me, and for a second I was like, am I being dumb with Theon? But no, I knew Theon was a fake. Oh,
Yeah.
Rickon. He's pointless. He doesn't matter anyway.
I don't use spoilers, but hey, man, 9 out of 10 combined score for the Locked On NFL Draft podcast and the Draft Network. That's incredible. Will you call out someone to come on and try to beat your score and maybe continue the Draft Network dominance in our draft trivia game?
All right, I can call out somebody from the Draft Network. Let's
Or
see.
anyone. Honestly.
Call out whoever you want.
Okay. Kyle would be good. Kyle would be very intense. Kyle's also a good Game of Thrones guy. Joe's a fun one because Joe knows a bunch of random trivia, and Joe's got a really good background on old drafts and old classes and stuff. I'll call out Joe. I'll give you guys Joe. I think Joe would be a fun time for y'all.
Awesome. What would you predict you get on the game?
Joe will be 4 out of 5. Joe will get 4, and then there'll be 1. Like, if you thought I was mad that I didn't get Rickon, there'll be 1 where you're like, what 2015 corner? And Joe will be sitting here for hours. He'll make you guys wait. and then he doesn't know it, and he'll be pissed he doesn't know it. But I think Joe gets 4.
4 out of 5 for Ben Solak. Really, really impressive. Ben, thanks so much for coming on, man.
I appreciate it, fellas. It was a good time.
Check him out on Twitter at Benjamin Solak and follow our Twitter at Boom or Bust Draft. For PJ Clark, for Tate Sigworth, and Benjamin Solak, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great night.